3 o'clock regular session of the Cleveland City Council. It's now 3 o'clock and we'll call this meeting to order. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Brooks.
Here.
Councilwoman McKenzie.
Here.
Councilman Estes.
Here.
Councilman Cassidy.
Here.
Councilman May.
Here.
Councilman Hughes.
Here.
Councilman Webb.
Here.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. As is our tradition, we will begin with our pledge and our invocation. I have asked Vice Mayor Johnson to give the invocation immediately following the pledge. Let's please stand. Salute and pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Vice Mayor.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you once again, Lord, for the opportunities to serve our community. And we have a very busy agenda, but we just pray, dear God, for your divine guidance. And we pray for your wisdom. And pray, Lord, that everything that we do will be pleasing and acceptable in thy sight. Thank you, dear God, for watching over our community. And we pray, Father, that you continue to be with us and to guide us. And continue, dear Heavenly Father, to help us to do unto others as we would have them do unto us, and be fair and use good judgment about all the decisions that comes upon our city. Thank you for the protection both and the blessings, both seen and unseen. All these requests we pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Vice Mayor Johnson, and to all of our guests, especially our firefighter brothers and sisters here for the Dust and Samples Act, the 303 proclamation that is on our agenda today, and we're honored to again support that again this year. Next item on the agenda is to waive the reading of the minutes from our last regular session, which was Monday, January the 23rd, and that does require a motion from the council.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council of the City of Cleveland waive the reading of the minutes of the regular session of the City Council held on January 23rd and approve them as written.
Second.
It's a proper motion by Vice Mayor Johnson. It's properly seconded by Councilman May. Any questions, concerns, or changes to those minutes? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Webb.
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie.
Aye.
Councilman Estes.
Aye.
It carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That takes us to item number 5 on the agenda, which is special presentations and public comments, which we have none for our 3 o'clock meeting today. Takes us to item 6, which is hearings, petitions, and communications. 6A, today's meeting is to be held to hear public comments concerning a request by J. Paul Wagner, Ronald Locke, Patrick Chapman, Daniel Bowles, Cynthia Dees for consideration of a plan of service for 2.2 acres, more or less, of property located at Benjamin Circle. It includes a portion of tax map 33, parcel 008. I will now declare this public hearing to be open. Is there anyone here to speak in favor? Mr. Varnell, any updates?
Just a quick briefing on it, Mr. Mayor. This is fairly straightforward. Lots within the city of Benjamin Crest are buying property behind them and making their lots bigger, and that's so they're absorbing this. And the plat was all of this was approved by the Planning Commission, just pending the annexation and plan of service. But they're attaching this section to existing lots in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Varnell. Is there anyone here else to speak in favor of this request? Seeing none, is there anyone here to speak in opposition of this request? Seeing none and hearing none, we will declare this public hearing to be closed. Item 6B is to hear public comments concerning a request by J. Paul Wagner, Ronald Locke, Patrick Chapman, Daniel Bowes, Cynthia Dees for consideration to annex 2.2 acres more or less for property located at Benjamin Circle, including a portion of tax map 33, parcel 008. I'll declare this public hearing to be open. Mr. Varnell, any further comments? Self-explanatory. Thank you, Mr. Varnell. Anyone like to speak in favor of this annexation request? Seeing none, anyone like to speak in opposition to this annexation request? Like sign, seeing none, we will declare this public hearing to be closed. Item C is a public hearing to hear comments concerning a request by Paul Wagner, Ronald Locke, Patrick Chapman, Daniel Bowles, and Cynthia Dees for consideration to zone 2.28 acres from unincorporated county to R1 single-family residential. Includes a portion of tax map 33 parcel 008. I now declare this public hearing to be open. Mr. Barnell, same comments?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anyone like to speak in favor of this zoning request? Seeing none. Anyone like to speak in opposition to this zoning request? And like sign, seeing none and hearing none, we will declare this public hearing to be closed. Item D is to hear public comments concerning a plan of service for 6.78 acres located, property located at Cove Lake Drive, including tax map 33G, Group A, parcels 34 and 34.1. It was approved by the Planning Commission. We will now declare this public hearing to be open. Mr. Barnell?
Yes, sir, thank you. Just a quick summary on this one again, coming in zone R1. It's in an existing subdivision. It was just left out when it was all originally annexed several years ago. The plan now is to construct a home on the site. It's a portion of one parcel and all of another. So fairly straightforward R1 zoning, matches the subdivision.
Thank you, Mr. Barnell. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this request? Seeing none, anyone like to speak in opposition to this request? Seeing none and hearing none, we will declare this public hearing to be closed. Item E on the agenda is a request by Marilyn Workman and Jonna Davis to annex 6.78 acres more or less, property located at Clove Lake Drive, includes tax map 33G, Group A, parcels 34 and 34.1. We will now declare this public hearing to be open. Mr. Barnell, same comments? Anyone like to speak in favor of this annexation request? Seeing none, anyone like to speak in opposition to this annexation request? Seeing none and hearing none, we will declare this public hearing to be closed. Item F on the agenda is to hear public comments concerning a request by Marilyn Workman and Jonna Davis to rezone 6.78 acres more or less from unincorporated county to R1 single-family residential, including tax map 33G, Group A, parcels 34 and 34.01. We will now declare this public hearing to be open. Mr. Barnell, same situation?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anyone like to speak in favor of this zoning request? Seeing none, anyone like to speak in opposition to this zoning request? Like sign, seeing none and hearing none, we will declare this public hearing to be closed. Item G on the agenda is to hear public comments concerning a request by Joel Simpkins for consideration of an ordinance to zone .46 acres more or less for property located at 10th Street Northwest from R1 single family to R3 multifamily residential, and it includes tax map 49F, Group M, parcel 002.2. It was approved by the Planning Commission 7-0. I now declare this public hearing to be open. Mr. Barnell, do you have any comments for us?
Yes, sir. Brief summary on this one. It's there's R3 surrounding this area. There's several similar uses in that area. You should have the attached aerial, and across the street both ways is R3, and then there is existing R1. The applicant is required to and has agreed to build and plant buffers on the two parcels that are remaining R1. One of the parcels next to it was the person who sold this piece, so they're all working together out there from what I understand.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Barnell, for that explanation. Anyone here like to speak in favor of this zoning request? Seeing none, anyone like to speak in opposition to the zoning request? And like sign, seeing none and hearing none, we will declare this public hearing to be closed. Item H on the agenda is to hear public comments concerning a request by the City of Cleveland for consideration of an ordinance to amend the Cleveland Municipal Code, Title 14, Zoning Ordinance, Section 2.10.1. Under uses allowed and 2.11.1, uses allowed to remove many warehouse facilities and include them in Section 2.10.2, conditional uses, and 2.11.2 conditional. Mr. Barnell would love to have some explanation, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is simply removing the kind of climate-controlled storage mini warehouse from uses allowed by right to conditional use, and it adds a little bit of standards on architectural detail based on the, surrounding neighborhoods, commercial neighborhoods, and make sure that the impact that they may or may not have is reviewed through the process as we kind of look at these. We've got a number of these going up, and through discussions with some of the owners of these businesses, there was very little negative thought about what we're doing here. It just adds a kind of a minor level of staff review to each potential site,
Making Cleveland better.
making Cleveland better.
Thank you, Mr. Varnell, for that explanation. Would anyone like to speak in favor of this amendment to the ordinance? Seeing none or hearing none, would anyone like to speak in opposition to this amendment? And like signs, seeing none and hearing none, we would declare this public hearing to be closed. It rapidly takes us to item number 7 on the agenda, which is the consent calendar. The consent calendar was presented at the 1 o'clock session.
So
Councilman-
moved there.
Councilman Cassidy, you had a comment?
Yes, I have a comment there. J, I'd like to take it off, put it on new business, please. I need more information on that before I vote.
So there's been a request for consent agenda item J, resolution 2.2023-15, amending personnel policies, to be placed under new business. There's considerable amount of new business, so that will be item J,
J,
ironically.
Yeah.
J under new business, resolution 2023-15. That is a proper request. We are back on the consent agenda. I had a motion from Councilman Hughes.
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Bill Estes. That's a proper motion, properly seconded. Are there any other questions, comments, or considerations for the consent agenda? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilman Estes, Councilman Cassidy,
aye.
Councilman May,
Aye.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. That carries 7-0.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Takes us to item 8, which is unfinished business. There was an addition from the 1 o'clock for the Phase 1 Project Green Arrow Security Camera discussion requested to be placed on the 3 o'clock by Councilman Estes. I'll take that as a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we fully fund the pilot study from just south of the Church of God to Greenway Park, and leave it with IT Director Miller.
Second.
That is a proper motion. It's also properly seconded by Councilman May. Are there any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Estes,
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. That carries 7-0.
Thank you. And Councilman Estes, did you also indicate the disc golf to be discussed at the 3 o'clock session? I had a note,
Sure.
but I don't have
Let's
a,
add it to new business.
certainly. So that would be a proper request, which would be item K, as in kilo, disc golf, under new business. All right, that takes us to item number 9 on the agenda, which is reports from council members. We begin today with Councilman Cassidy.
Mayor, I have nothing at this time, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman May?
Nothing.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Hughes?
I do have just a comment. Anytime we have teams that win the state, we bring them to city council and congratulate them. We had Cleveland High School won the duels, oddly enough, playing against Bradley, 265 to 263, a very close contest. Plus the girls became the first state championship for females from our area, so we'll have the boys and the girls. But I'd like to suggest to the council that we wait until they have the individuals, which is coming up in 2 weeks. and there's a possibility they'll win that also. So bring them in and congratulate them and
It's wonderful.
do a resolution as we do generally for proclamation, I guess, would be better.
Duly noted. Congratulations to the Raiders.
Yes, right. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Webb.
No, sir.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
I was wondering, Joe, if you got any update on Martin Drive? Are they going to, is that in the city, they're gonna put lights on Martin Drive? Request I made a few weeks ago. Heard it.
Yeah, if you look at item H on the consent agenda, 804 Martin Drive, Cleveland Utilities does not recommend additional lighting, however, as it meets the city guidelines. But the existing HPS fixture can be upgraded to an LED equivalent, so you can get it improved, and that's what the council voted on to approve it. So we'll probably have like 3 or 4 times the amount of light that it has now.
Excuse me.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
You're very welcome.
Anything further, Vice Mayor?
That's all.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman McKenzie. Thank you. Councilman Estes.
Joe, thanks for the work looking into land banks and going forward on that. Tommy, thank you for the quick action on the potholes a couple of weeks ago. I had people actually circle back to me and thank me on how fast that went. Robert, Joe, are we up to date on crypto mining, changing those ordinances? Is everything tied off on that? Okay.
I think everything's a conditional use.
It's in heavy industrial,
Conditional use and heavy.
Conditional, and I need to know, yeah, is that right?
it's conditional use in heavy industrial, yes, sir. Conditions that have to be met, to even apply.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
And then the last thing, Chief Gibson, we got 65 Roses next month, and I know the Community Shield, this could be the year that the police department defeats the fire department. So, just. Okay. This could be the year, you know, I mean, I say that every year when the Bears kick off, you know. So, all right. That's all.
Thank you, Councilman. And I would be remiss, Mr. Myers, if I also did not thank you for your assistance on Chambliss Avenue for the sinkhole, pothole that appeared that you fixed within the same lunch hour of the call. And like Councilman Estes, I got far more undue credit than deserved because it is your team and your leadership of that team that makes all that possible. So thank you for taking care of that as well. That concludes our reports from council members. It takes us to item number 10 on the agenda, which is new business and ordinances. There's quite a few and some now new additions. But under 10A, Resolution 2023, request by Paul Wagner, Ron Locke, Patrick Chapman, Daniel Bowles, and Cynthia Dees for consideration of a plan of service for 2.2 acres for property located at Benjamin Circle, including tax map 33 parcel 008, and this ordinance would require a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's a proper motion by Councilman Estes, properly seconded by Councilman May. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Estes.
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Webb. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. That carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Item B, Resolution 2023-12. It's a request by Paul Wagner, Ron Locke, Patrick Chapman, Daniel Bowes, and Cynthia Dees for consideration.
Second.
All right, we have a proper motion by Councilman Hughes, properly seconded by Councilman Estes. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Hughes.
Aye.
Councilman Estes.
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy.
Aye.
Councilman May.
Aye.
Councilman Webb.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. Carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Motion passes. Item C, zoning ordinance 2023-2, and this does require a motion from the council.
So moved. Second.
All right, I have a proper motion by Vice Mayor Johnson, properly seconded by Councilman Estes. Any questions or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Estes,
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy,
Aye.
Councilman May,
Aye.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. It carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Motion passes. Item D, Resolution 2023-13, Plan of Service does require a motion from the council.
So moved.
Second.
Proper motion by Councilman May, the second by Councilwoman McKenzie? Bill Estes, I'm sorry, Councilman, sorry. Writing as fast as I can, ladies and gentlemen. Councilman Mays, proper
Aye.
motion. Councilman Estes, second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman May,
Aye.
Councilman Estes,
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy,
Aye.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. That carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Item E, Resolution 2023-14. It is a annexation request for Cove Lake Drive. It does require a motion from the council.
So moved.
All right, I have a proper motion by Vice Mayor, proper motion by Councilman Webb, properly seconded by Vice Mayor Avery Johnson. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy,
Aye.
Councilman May,
Aye.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie, Councilman Estes.
Aye.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Item F, zoning ordinance 2023-3, rezoning 6.78 acres. It does require a motion from the council.
So moved.
Proper motion by Councilman Hughes, properly seconded by Councilwoman McKenzie. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie, Councilman Cassidy,
Aye.
Councilman May,
Aye.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Estes.
Aye.
That carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Item G, zoning ordinance 2023-4, request by Joel Simpkins to zone .46 acres.
So moved.
Proper motion by Councilman May. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly seconded by Councilman Estes. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman May,
Aye.
Councilman Estes,
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy,
Aye.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie. Carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Item H, under new business ordinance 2023-5, amending the Cleveland Municipal Code Title 14 zoning ordinances, removing many warehouse facilities. It does require a motion from the council.
So moved. Second.
It's a proper motion by Councilman Webb, properly seconded by Councilman Hughes. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilman Cassidy,
Aye.
Councilman May,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie, Councilman Estes.
Aye.
Carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. Mr. Fivas, item A, discussion and possible modifications on employee recruitment. Item I is an igloo.
Can I defer that for the last item?
Last, certainly, that will move that to the last item. Takes us to item J, was requested, proper request from Councilman Cassida to move resolution 2023-15 from the consent calendar to new business. Councilman Cassida, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Joe, on this personnel thing with staff, I see where it says being approved recommendations, and it's kind of both ways, it's recommendations versus the summary. I just want to make sure that the HR committee had recommendations to move from 15 miles to 30 miles. Is that correct? As far as company cars being traveled?
Yes, they recommended going from 15 to 30 miles, people that have city cars.
Yeah.
And that was the only recommendation that I chose not to recommend to you.
Okay.
So I'm recommending that it stay at 15. However,
Okay.
flexibility on a temporary basis if, you know, we have housing issues, we have other issues that it gives some flexibility to work with employees on those issues that.
It gives you flexibility to change that,
That's right.
only you, correct?
That's right.
Okay, all right. And then it says down here at the bottom of your recommendation, it says that, the new policy will not go forward until, you know, July the 23rd. And it says also creating an index that a new, expense travel for all city employees. What do you, I'm kind of vague on that. What's that? Is it 15 or is it gonna go further or what?
Those two things are two different concepts.
Okay,
The one is, if you're using a city car, there's the circumference on which you can use that. The other one is the travel policy is that we have sometimes, employees, and quite often, that go to training and that require travel.
right. They use their own vehicles possibly?
Sometimes they do.
Okay, and they get reimbursed back for that, correct?
Is what we're gonna do is our policy is, I think it's from the 90s,
Mm-hmm,
is that we are working on something that will be, updated for that. So what I'm saying there is, this isn't implemented, is that we're working on something that is more updated than what we're working off of now.
okay. All right. Is that from the city limits, 15 miles out from that, or is it from the municipal building here?
Two separate concepts. One,
For city
I think-
vehicles?
I think we measure it from here. I think. What? Yeah, I
The
think
building?
it's the building of which department it is, so if it's Public Works, it's Public
Okay.
Works. So there's two different concepts. The one concept is, if you have a take-home vehicle, our policy has always been, is that we will allow you to take that vehicle home as long as you're within 15 minutes, or 15 miles.
Yeah.
And under what you're looking at and voting on, it would stay 15, but it gives flexibility to me, working with a manager on that sometimes they can't get housing, they can't find an apartment to rent if they're a new employee and they are having a car, is it gives us the flexibility to work with that employee so they're not automatically working outside.
Can we
the
put a
policy.
timeline on that? I mean, as council members, we within our territory, if we move out, we have to resign, so can there be a timeline that not be a year or 2 years, if the exemption goes for that period of time? I'm just asking a question.
No, that's why we go through the council
Yeah.
adopted policy, is, you know, I think, the issues that we're having right now are sometimes, you have someone, probably a newly hired police officer that you want them to work, and they're living in Chattanooga, and they're trying to find the right house or an affordable location to move, and sometimes it takes some time for that, so we would like to be able to work with them on how to do that. And whatever you think is reasonable.
I'm asking you, I'm just,
Mark, do you have an opinion on that?
Well,
I'm just saying, because if we go,
Company that can afford, a new officer that can afford to find housing here, and then, most people that we're attracting are rural, people live in rural counties, like, you know, Meigs County, Roy County, Hamilton County, and it's hard for them to find a residence where they can move in, and especially if they have families or whatever, so the car issue is a big deal, because you're trying everything you can to attract people to come work here.
right, I
And,
understand.
and that's one of the big issues is
we're just not seeing people that currently live in Bradley County, or Cleveland for that matter, that can find affordable housing. And so it takes them a while to relocate and find a place where they can relocate here.
Yeah, okay. But there is a cost to that. I mean, you go out further than that. You go 30 miles and you do the math on it, and, you know, for 300 days, it's about 16,000 miles. The average driver only uses 12,000 miles from the U.S. Department of Transportation. So that's a huge cost. It's almost $2,700 a year in gas. So it is a cost to do those things. You know, owning a company I do, and some people up here do, but the people that have businesses out there, that their employees do not get these comforts, you would just say. And I'm concerned because it will be an added cost to that, what we're doing now. So it's sometimes it can be huge if it goes for a length of time.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, that was, we think there has to be limits on that, and I think, we're comfortable with limits. I think that, each situation is different. If someone is living 16 miles away, are we gonna give them more time? Probably have a little more flexibility. If they're living 30 miles away, I think there's very little flexibility. And so that's what you have to balance, is giving us the flexibility. We agree that and something that you know, you see a lot of times around here, is you see a lot of Collegedale and
Yeah.
Hamilton County, a lot of out-of-town police cars, is, and this is just my opinion, and I get in trouble for it, or criticized for it, but I don't necessarily wanna see City of Cleveland police cars driving over in Georgia, or whatever, because I think there has to be limits on that, and I think that we all recognize that, but we need the flexibility to be able to do that. So if you wanna put a limit on there, we'll live within the limit, and it's not offensive. My guess is you probably agree on that it's not a freebie, it's allowing us to work with an employee on different ways to do that. And there's, if you had an employee that was out at 30 or 40 miles, we would probably say, well, you need to drive your own car and then get in your car. And that's happened before, and some of that stuff is I think we're on the same page as being good stewards of the taxpayers' funds.
Correct.
And all that. So if you want to amend it and put
No,
1 year or 2 years, I'm very comfortable with that.
No, I'm fine with it, but I would ask, if I don't know how the policy goes, for anybody that's on this, that you extend over, I'd like to see documentation on it. I would like to see a monthly documentation on the individuals and where they live and what the cost is on that. I would like to see that.
Yeah, we'll get whatever is requested.
Okay, that's why I'm requesting, I don't know if council wants it, but that's what I like to see on that part, and how long it goes, just a monthly report on that part.
Okay.
Okay? But you also said employees can be reimbursed back for theirs, so does that mean that city council members can be reimbursed for their?
Two different concepts.
Okay, I'm just asking a question.
That is if you have your own vehicle and you're traveling to work.
Right.
The travel policy is when you have training or educational opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, sometimes there's a seminar on the newest and innovations in building technology, and we send our inspectors over there to Murfreesboro.
Correct.
And it's normal practice to allow them to stay in a reasonable hotel, allow them to eat reasonably, go and do the training, and then coming back.
Okay.
And so that's, our policy to do that right now is 30 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So
ancient.
it holds true to council members too, if we travel to Nashville, we reimburse back for our
If
gas?
we write it,
If we write down that we're doing city work going up there to talk to a representative or a senator?
well, that's why we wanna have a policy, and if that's the way that you want us to write the policy, we'll certainly include the council members. But I believe if there are, stipend or you know, if you're going to, the Tennessee Municipal League things or some other, areas that, that I believe in the past, I haven't seen that, is that we have reimbursed people for, you know, their gasoline, and stuff like there, if it's documented city business.
Is it reimbursed a percentage, or is it reimbursed the total amount if you bring a ticket back? Is that-
I think we've done both. You have the federal standards on reimbursement if you're using your own car.
Okay,
There's sometimes, that we're asked and we'll just pay, for the gasoline that someone's using. So, and I don't think we've done that in a while.
Yeah.
But that's what this, in what you're reading, that's what this document would lay out is, here's all the rules, restrictions, the can't do's and the things that you are requirements as far as having receipts, and you can
Right.
document it to
Right.
make sure that at the end of the day, our auditors and finance people
correct, I
can
understand,
tie that
I
back.
understand. Can we make sure that council and all council members, both is included in that too, that we have that same, I mean, if we're doing business and we're not asking for any money, but just to be reimbursed for our expenditures, if we're going somewhere that's,
We'll draft it that includes y'all.
okay. Mayor, that's all I got. I'll make a motion that as long as we have, I get a document once a month of who's outside those perimeters, that's temporary, monthly report. I'll make a motion to approve.
Resolution 2023-15?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That is a proper motion by Cassada. It does require a second from the council.
Second.
That is a proper motion by Councilman Cassada, proper second by Vice Mayor Avery Johnson. Any comments, questions, or concerns? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Cassidy,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman May,
Aye.
Councilman Hughes,
Aye.
Councilman Webb,
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie, Councilman Estes. It carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That motion passes. It takes us to item K, which is discussion disc golf course. Councilman Estes. The map was presented during the break of the meetings and is,
I didn't really think I was the one asking for this, so I was happy to add it to the agenda. I'm not opposed to what's drawn here. I think they've left. Oh, no. So, can I interpret it this way?
Yes.
9 holes.
Go ahead.
9 holes with 2 sets of tees and 2
18.
baskets. 9 holes, really? 18?
18.
I mean, or is it 9 holes with 2 baskets from 2 sets of tees?
18 holes,
18 baskets,
18 holes,
okay?
and each hole has 2 tee pads and 2 baskets.
Okay, I couldn't understand from the
That's-
drawing, front and back. Okay.
Right, and the drawing is only the long to long, and the short to short are contained within those lines.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. I know we need a motion.
And I did want to speak to Councilman Cassidy's point
Yeah,
that
I
you mentioned
had-
in the break.
Yeah.
You were concerned about running along the pathways.
Pathways,
As
yes,
it
sir.
is laid out on the map, the only 2 places where that happens, out of all 18 holes, is on hole 9, which is in the very back of the park, runs along pathway, and not directly, and hole 7 briefly. Every other one is isolated, and the reason we did try to use the open spaces is to minimize the amount of trees we would have to deal with.
Mayor, I've got concerns with this council. I mean, I want the park, and I want the disc park, but when it runs along the greenway where people are walking, and you have people throwing frisbees, that they have policies not to throw while they're walking, but you have young people may throw them and hit people, we're gonna have, if there's any way to get those 2 holes rerouted, any way to get that off the path, we're gonna have people come complain, just like a dog park behind a neighborhood. It's, I can foresee this coming out, that people are gonna come and I can't walk down the path anymore, because I might have to go frisbee, somebody throwing and hit me with it in the back of the head, or a kid or something riding a bike. So I was under the impression it wouldn't, you say it wouldn't cross the greenways.
That's
But
right.
it does run parallel to,
In two places.
two places, which, Joe, it concerns me on that part. I mean, we're just opening ourselves up for people that are walking that park. It's,
Well, you can make it a stipulation that it has to be 60 feet from any walking trail or something.
I mean-
We can change it.
Right, we did the design process on the stipulations that were given to us, so if there are
Okay.
more, we can make adjustments.
yeah.
Can I,
Go ahead.
I don't wanna use this word, but I'm going to, pickleball. You do it, you have unintended consequences. You got people, pickleball that came with good in it, and so we kinda sorted it out as we went through. This is not difficult to change. I mean, I've seen these in Tulsa, I've played on them in other communities.
Yeah.
It's not difficult to change.
Right.
Let them do it. If there's two holes that are a problem, we can sort it out. It's not difficult to sort those out later, if there's really gonna be problems. You're gonna have people complain because they're born to complain,
Well,
you know, and so,
it's just,
yeah,
you come sit in this meeting, I really got with this, you need
I
to,
have enough.
yeah, well,
Well, and I would only add, Councilman Cassada, I would concur with Councilman Estes to not
No.
stall the
no, I don't wanna stall.
concept any further, but currently, today, on the Greenway, where our new Project Green Arrow cameras are, you have bikers, skateboarders,
You used to have horses too.
walkers, runners, all competing for the same sidewalk, and there's not any problem. So,
sit on the council's house.
Yeah, you don't use Greenway that often, do you?
Mrs. Brooks says that there's not a lot of conflict on the Greenway.
There is a problem with that, it scares you
But
to
if it's
death.
sort, we can sort it out. Let's- I
Yeah,
mean,
we can sort it out,
let's
if
let it
some way
go.
y'all can look at it and
Yeah,
see if
absolutely.
there's some way to get that, it would make me feel better, cause I'm gonna get a lot of calls on this.
Joe, I think the city sign department will be posting signage, and I think that should be a part of the signage.
Watch out for flying frisbees.
UFOs?
To the,
The only thing we're doing is we're just saying, go order your baskets.
Okay,
You're gonna see detailed layouts of the long holes, or every hole is gonna have a detailed layout.
okay,
And I imagine we'll be making lots of adjustments.
And-
okay, well, I'm fine with that, it's just I can foresee having problems down the road, and I don't want myself and council and staff to have to deal with those while we can deal with them up front.
This is, if, let's say we ran into an issue, and I think Dr. Estes is correct. We can probably fix it in
Yeah,
10 minutes with
okay,
a shovel, and we can just move the basket to a different location, it's there. If someone has reservations about doing it at all, this is the time to say, hey, we need to slow down. If you're comfortable with the concept, we just wanna go to the next level of drilling down and getting there.
well, Dr. X is had a shovel in his hand all weekend, so he's
I'm
used to a
backwards.
shovel in his hand.
So
He
moved,
cleared
Mayor.
out. Second it.
All right, so that's a proper motion by Councilman Estes, properly seconded by Councilman Cassada. Any comments, questions, or concerns from the council? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Estes?
Aye.
Councilman Cassada?
Aye.
Councilman May?
Aye.
Councilman Hughes?
Aye.
Councilman Webb? Vice Mayor Johnson?
Aye.
Councilwoman McKenzie? That carries 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Motion passes. Takes us back to item I, discussion and possible modifications to employee recruitment material. Mr. Fibus, you're recognized.
Well, this is not the ideal time, after we've been here for 3 hours talking, I felt that we probably at least need to put this on the table and have a conversation. We had this on the last agenda, so this is a carryover. Overall, and this is slightly different from the previous, we made some modifications in the last 2 weeks. This is the Cleveland compensation analysis and the budget implications. What this does is that, I'm gonna give you the conclusions up front. is that it adjusts the salaries for every single, adjusts the pay scale for every single employee that we have. We are not talking about any employee's pay, we're not talking about pay increases, we're talking about the pay schedule that you have a minimum and a maximum. So we're not necessarily talking about, that. And I'll back into why we're talking about that in a moment. One of the things, but we do have some issues, and this was kind of initiated that if you Google right now, and I can throw up all kinds of articles, anywhere across the country, is that teachers and police professions are having a very difficult time recruiting staff members. And that issue has come to the city of Cleveland. And we want to throw some options out here that not only addresses some of their concerns, but all of our employees have seen inflation in the last year and a half since we did our study. And so we would adjust all of them, and that will be the end conclusion on this. And there's some specific recommendations here, and I'll get to them in a moment. Chief Gibson, Assistant Chief Stacy Smith approached us about looking at some of these questions. Certainly Mark is a good resource to ask questions. I'm sure he'd be happy to address them. Is that basically a lot of our recruitment efforts for the police department have been very difficult, to say the least, in the last year and a half or so. The issues that they're running into stem from not having enough applicants. There's also that probably for every 3 applicants that we've had in the last year, 2 of them have not been able to pass the academy. Correct? One did. Quit the academy. I'm sorry, quit. For some reason didn't, we invested money and they weren't able to make that. And there's some reasons why that's happening that I'm gonna go through in a moment. I wanna first start out that we've also looked at some healthcare and retirement issues, is that you have to look at compensation in an overall totality of someone's benefit. We obviously have very good healthcare benefits, and we have very good retirement benefits, and our incentives, and many of those are competitive as well. As you see here, we are one of 25 CALEA certified police departments in the state of Tennessee. There are 400 agencies in the state of Tennessee, and we are 1 out of 25 that are CALEA. Is that somewhat correct? So in order to keep up to date with our CALEA accreditations and to keep the quality that we have, having quality employees is obviously what you guys strive for, and what we strive for is to make sure that we have the best on the city of Cleveland. Fiscal year 22, we completed a compensation study. The results were implemented, and you all have a copy of this if you need to follow. Were implemented last year. However, the inflation, lack of employees, societal pressure has rocked the old normal for what police compensation looks like. Just Google it, and you'll see everywhere from California to Maine has issues with police recruitment. And it's very well documented, and many of you know that. Currently, we have 106 post-certified police officers positions budgeted. Currently, we have 6 open positions. We have, I think, 5 that are currently at training. But the thing that's concerning is we also have a number of people that we know that are gonna retire coming up this spring, and that is putting additional pressure on putting a number of resources on the streets that we need to hopefully maintain. As you see, you know, the council has been very fair to the police. We've increased their budget from $9 million in 2015 to $12,600,000. So we have invested heavily in those areas. So here's what's going on, and here's how we ended up to where we are today. For years, the city of Cleveland was probably higher than most. We were higher in Chattanooga. We were probably higher than many agencies around in salary. Our benefits and the healthcare have always been fairly strong. In 2021, Chattanooga raised their certified tax rate from 1.85 to 2.25. And all of those resources went to, I think, significant amount, 90%, maybe there was something else, went to salaries for the city of Chattanooga. And they invested in their employees. This is equivalent to about a 40-cent tax increase. They moved, with this additional funding, Chattanooga increased their police salaries from $35,000 to a starting pay of about $47,000. You'll see in a moment, Cleveland's pay is about $39,000. So we were always higher than Chattanooga, and now they've come. In the past, we were able to recruit those areas that someone could go and work in Chattanooga and come here and still get a pay increase. And now you have employees in Chattanooga and Hamilton County that can't afford to transfer here because you go back and you start at the lowest rate. Because of Chattanooga taking the lead on this, it's created a scenario where Hamilton County has raised their rates, Dalton has raised their rates, Collegedale has raised their bands, and I'm just talking their starting salaries, but they also have some great disparity between some of their benefits and their health care. Dalton has just a 401k. I think they have, don't quote me on the percentages, but I think they have I think it's a 5% city contribution into the 401k. I have to double check, but that's their retirement option. So that's obviously much less. It's not as good of a benefit as probably what you would have in Cleveland County. In 2022, we've had 17 officers resign and leave the department. While we've always had turnover, this rate is higher than in previous years. I'm not going to go through there. You know, we had 4 left, and you know, you can see we had a retirement. 8 of the 17 left before their first year, so we've hired them, and then they're usually leaving to find other employment for costs and wages. And you can go through there. I'm not going to go through all of those, but it kind of lays out kind of what we've been seeing as an agency. We've looked at what these other agencies, and it's kind of a difficult thing, is do you look at the compensation of just the communities around you that you're competing with? Do you look at, you know, we had a comp study, do you look at just the communities that you have the comp study with? Or do you look at like communities that are virtually the same in different areas in the state? How do you look at these questions? What we're seeing is really what the pay scale dictates for law enforcement across the country is how close are you to urban area. The closer you are to an urban area, it's a predictor that their starting salaries are much higher across the board. We are right in between Chattanooga, and right in between, if you go to the east, McMinn County, Bradley County, is you see the salaries drop off significantly. So what does this all mean for our overall salary? Here you have, if you can't read that, you have a copy of that. Our starting salaries for police officers are $39,600. Chattanooga's 47, Hamilton County's 51, Collegedale's 48, Dalton is 52, Bradley County is 38. So you see that line, we're right in the middle of that line. Are we on further to the east from a pay scale standpoint being competitive? Or are we with Chattanooga? And that's the question that we've been trying to analyze and figure out over the last 7 months. So that's one way to look at it. The average of these is 45,900. So if you're looking at the communities that are just closest to us, that's kind of your quick and dirty analysis just on what that. Now, this does not take into account their benefits or their retirements. This is just salaries. If you look at Chattanooga, their employees will pay for individual health care, and they'll pay a certain percent for their retirement. They don't have TCRS. I believe they have their own system. You look at these are the communities that that our consultant picked as the communities to check us with. You go through all there: Collierville, Cooksville, Gainesville, Maryville, Oak Ridge, Murfreesboro, Spring Hill. If we were going to do analysis, those say 45,800 is where our point is. So you're saying, well, why are we at 39 if those are the ones that we did? That's how much the market has moved across the board. Is many communities are dealing with this, is that you have that 10 to 15% increase across the board, and that's what we're having a conversation about and reacting to. Now you look at the third criteria, is communities that are very similar to Cleveland, on how we operate, on how we look, on that we're kind of centered, we're the center of a county, major population areas where you have Kingsport and Johnson City and Jackson and some of those, that if you take those, the average is about 40,000. If you did the analysis on picking those, it's really it's lower because the average is 40. It's their proximity to a metro area. And are we close enough to Chattanooga to have to go all the way up to where we are, or are we back where McMinn County is? And that's the question that we're looking at. Before I move forward, do you have any questions on how we set that up? Different pay ranges, where we're at. If you go back here, we're about, if you look at just light-sized communities, we're not far off. We're probably right there. If you look at our comparisons, if we took our exact comparisons that we did at 18 months ago, that number has went from approximately 39,000 to about 45,000. So if we're just going to just use those numbers, that would be the number. If you're going to look at the cities that we're actually competing with, 47, 51, 52, those are the ones that are the closest that the police officers that we historically have done a great job of recruiting the best and brightest from those agencies to our agency and being very successful at that. Question before I move on? Again, we're talking about police. This proposal at the end is going to talk about all of our city employees, and most importantly, is that this is really a bridge. This proposal will act as a bridge to get us to where we need to do so that we can dramatically change how we do our compensation studies in the future. right now, it's our policy that we have to do them every 5 years, and we just got done doing one. It creates a very big gap, kind of be divisive in some ways. I think that I'm going to recommend at the end here to, let's make a move right now on these, and then in 2024, then we start a process that we do compensation studies every year. And we make that a traditional thing that in January, we have, and we incrementally move people. It's probably the fairest thing for employees, it's probably the fairest thing for y'all to not do that, but to really look at some of these questions. So anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's where this is headed.
Councilman Gaston, you had a question?
Yeah, and Joe, you're talking about conversation for everybody. Will that require us to have a tax increase? I mean, when we get to that point, we'll have to talk about having an increase on taxes to.
This proposal doesn't include that.
I'm just talking about later on, when you're talking about all the departments getting them up to speed with that.
Depends on what the markets do, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you know, if you
Well-
if you go from, 5 years in around 2015, it was probably pretty flat.
Joe, I want to be fair to all staff, all departments across the board. And I know that the police is struggling. Chief, I know you're struggling. But I don't think it has to do with the city of Cleveland. I think it has to do with the media that's actually proposing people where they don't want to go into law enforcement because of all the things they have to do and consequences. And Chattanooga did do something you said increase, and for all the employees. I mean, we've got other people. The fire department's another one. Can we see data for the fire department from Chattanooga and all these other places? We got Public Works that's needing people that we can't get, and our service is going up, our city is growing.
The difference is,
They're people. They're trying to make a living.
I understand that, we're not talking about people's take-home salary, we're not talking about, you have to understand, we're talking about pay ranges. We're not talking about individual employees' salaries at this point. We're just talking about where they start and where they max out.
You can't separate those two.
You can't.
You can't
You
separate
can't
them.
yeah.
We're talking about both.
Yeah, I think the world of everybody in all our departments, Public Works, I mean, we've only had 4 people hired in Public Works since 2008. And they've been concrete.
4 new positions.
4 new positions, they're concrete, and it's 2008. And Tommy does a wonderful job, and I'm gonna fight for all departments across. I think our fire department does a great job, I think our police department does a great job. And I can't see just picking one out and just pushing that one.
No, this proposal includes a change for every single position employee.
I would like to see data on pay scales of all departments and all the ones you got listed.
And what I would
Chattanooga, not just the police department, I wanna see the fire department, I wanna see Public Works. I like to see all of them. I think the world of all our employees, that they ought to have
Well, but
in the
so do
market.
we.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we all think we're the same.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I want to put a pin on with that is, I agree with everything you said. Right now, we are having issues with just, our fire department has 100% staffing, they have 3 people they're gonna hire. We don't have an issue of hiring new fire. This is not going to move anyone's pay, or this is just moving the starting pay.
Do we move starting pay for the fire department too?
This proposal does that. So I'm saying, it would, for every position in the fire department, this proposal will change it for everyone,
On all the pay scales too?
on all the pay scales,
In all departments?
on every position that we have. So that's what this will do. And then in 2024, and I'm getting way ahead of myself to the end, then we'll start doing what you're asking for, is doing a comp study every year. It'll take us some time to get someone and to figure out those issues. This is a bridge to that time that we can change our system, as it treats everyone everyone's pay scales go up. Does not mean that everyone's going to pay increase, it just means that everyone's pay scales are going to be adjusted for essentially inflation.
I know Bradley County police officers, I talked to Steve the other day, and they're struggling. He can't keep officers over there at Bradley County too, so we're not the only ones that are sitting here. Polk County same way, Dominion County same way. It's not something that's new out there. It's, again, I'll go back to the media and all this stuff that they put, requirements. People don't want to get into the police, or you defunding the police and stuff. It's hard to market it on those people. It really is.
Well, it's especially hard when the people in Hamilton County, Collegedale, and Chattanooga are making $10,000 more
Yeah.
starting out than our employees.
But there's a fire department, because you said that they had an increase, and 90% of them, does the fire department get an increase, does Public Works get an increase too?
Yes,
when they did
and
that?
my answer is yes. And we'll
Okay.
get to the end and.
And Joe, getting back to the comp study, we've been doing the comp study for 5 years.
That's right.
It's impossible to keep up with what's going on with doing a comp study over 5 years. If you don't do it annually, then you get so far behind, then we have to have a tax increase at that point to catch up. So I'm all for the
Yeah, and that's.
Annually.
So I view this proposal as a bridge to get us to a new way of doing the compensation. Because I think,
I would like to add one other thing too. A lot of the young people that are coming into the force really don't, the benefits is something that needs to be talked about in the near future.
it's in this proposal.
Okay. Okay, I'm getting ahead. It's just, okay.
So, I'm not surprised that this is an active conversation. Overall, the budget is strong, we're balanced for the current year, don't have any structural issues. Next year, there are some things that are coming, and probably unforeseen is probably the wrong word, that are out there. Some things that go hand in hand with these conversations. As we know, we talked about our solid waste. Well, that number, it could be $200,000 over 1 point, or it could be $200,000 less. So it's about 900 to 1.3. So that will be new money that we'll need. So that's a funding gap that we're pretty assured that will be there. You have tax appeals that we have the hospital and other industry and big box stores that have been actively repealing their taxes, and to account for that, to look $200,000. New debt payments are about $800. There's a new ratio out there at the state level. I've heard different numbers. It might be a little high, it might be a little low, but essentially it's the way the comptroller evaluates our taxes.
Personal property tax.
Personal property tax. The county gets hit with this more than what we do, because they have a bigger tax base, but this is something that we're working on. Employer, just by giving, if the council decides to give a 3.5% raise, it's probably $800,000 to $900,000 of new money that we need to add, and that would also include the benefits that go along with that. And just the cost of things, of buying anything, and you all deal with that, is $500,000. So that's why this proposal is measured and a bridge that bridges some of these issues and gets us to a new formula, and we'll need to figure out some of their. So it's important to see what's in front of us from a budget standpoint, to how we go to a new system that does that. Now, bullet point number 3, will not be proposing a tax increase to offset those budget deficiencies. I think that while the numbers are there, I think we have good ideas on how we can approach some of those items. It's not going to be easy, but it's doable. One of the issues identified in the police compensation analysis is that there's great disparity between the community's retirement and healthcare benefits. The city had the best retirement and healthcare compared to other communities. Cleveland did. After discussing with other city managers, our police chief, and other, and doing general research, we found that many younger employees want more portable retirement benefits and opportunities to take with them. There are options that if you stay in the TCRS, you can have a hybrid plan, which gives 401k paired with a defined benefit. Right now, the city and this is just for police officers, and it's somewhere, and it goes up, and I believe fire department is the same as well. We need to look at other options or redirect these funds. So our goal could potentially be change our retirement, be able to pay some higher wages, if that's what the newer set employees want in the future. Related to the budget process, city management will propose a new retirement option for new employees. And again, any new proposal will only affect current city, will not affect current city employees. So this would be just for new employees. Have conversations with retirement practices and benefits for Cleveland Utilities and Cleveland City Schools. The hybrid program they have is what we're looking at, and I'm not saying we've made any decisions. It's the same thing that all of our teachers have here in Cleveland, so we would have the same retirement benefits as the teachers. My understanding of Cleveland Utilities is actively looking to make the same change to the hybrid plan, and so they're already going in that direction. We have to put some numbers to paper and give the council some options to look at how to do that. The goal will be to provide a retirement benefits that's more affordable, potentially better for new employees in the long run. Any retirement changes will not impact current city employees, and I said that twice for a good reason. Does not affect any current employees. The initial figures show that the city could save, if you adopted something, $20 to $30 million over the next 20 years in retirement savings. So now we're to our conclusions and recommendations. And there's no question that any move on salary for one specific department would cause internal strife and probably a good cause. Therefore, due to inflation, and part of the budget proposal is at the beginning of July, we'll recommend to the city council to raise all city employees' minimum and maximum wages by 2.5%. In July. They will all go up 2.5%. So everyone will shift. Their starting salaries will be higher. Their ending salaries will be higher. And then the next year, we would do the same 2.5%. In that time, we are re-changing our formula for how we do these things in the future. So there's someone that should ask me, well, what about 2.5? How do we know, is that market rate? What do we know about that? We just know it's gone up in general. But when we do the study in 2024, then we can say that will square everything up, whether it was too high, whether it was too low, and that's where we need to be. So again, this year, every single employee would go up 2.5%. We're not talking pay increases, we're just talking moving the minimums and maximums. There will be employees that are that will see some benefit. We have a computer model that can look at that and can evaluate whether to bring them up to where they need to be.
Joe, my guess is employees with less time will be bumped up, where employees with more time have less of a bump.
That would be the trend that we've seen.
Okay.
But there's a good reason for that.
Sure.
That
because if you're an employee and you've been here for 10 years,
I'm good,
it was a good question, I want everyone to, is that if you've been an employee here for 10 years, you've had the benefit of having probably about 35% pay increase just on our annual adjustments that we made, which is more than what the rate of inflation is somewhere, well, I can't remember, I think it was 2014 we looked at there, that we looked at that. But we've looked at the rate of inflation versus that. But also, if you're here longer, we have a very beneficial increase from when you get a promotion of 8%. Many organizations are only a 5% increase. If you recall, when we did this, our last comp study, we recommended 5%, and then we decided to request of some employees to move it back to 8. So the more you're in the organization, the faster you move up very aggressively through our system. So the people that are at the bottom, newer employees, would see probably a little bit more benefits. We get a process, 2024, doing compensation studies annually, every year, without fail. We will have a firm that will be very good, and that's what they do, is every year they give us our numbers in November, we make the adjustments, we work the council, and hopefully those adjustments are more minimal and easier to budget than every 5 years, and then you have a big gulf between. One of our, and this, I should say one of my priorities is that doing the 2.5% gets us actually in the ballpark of the minimum salary of $15 per hour, as that would be the basement for any employee of the city. I think that's a good goal, and raising our schedule 2.5 to 2.5 gets us in that ballpark. So the other piece of that, so that's all the employees, are just the police. As you saw that we had some numbers, and trying to be competitive with those communities, because they're the ones that are having difficulty recruiting, and you may have questions for Mark, and he can give you feedback on their. Let me give you a data point. 2021, we had 125 applicants for police positions. And we hired, 8 to 10 or whatever. So that's a pretty good number. As you get the best of the best, and you're doing very well. This last year, we had probably a third of that, or double. We had probably 30 people total apply for about 17 positions. So your number of people you have to choose from is less. That's all we're trying to do, is trying to get more people to apply and to be more competitive. So what we're moving is that the police would move from their number right now up to $43,000 for new police officers. Very small print, and that wasn't done intentionally. Up there it looks awful. Is the new pay scale starting that the new police officers in July 23 would go to 43, then on July 24 it'd be a two-step process again, to where they would go up to 45. And again, this works within some of the budget challenges that we already kind of outlaid, of trying to make budgets meet and make sure that we can pay the bills. Another thing that's probably really important is, and this is as we implement this, and this is if you want to Google any police department, especially around metro areas, they're looking at just about any incentive, including bonuses. This would allow us to give a $3,000 bonus to an employee who came that was post-certified. So if they already have experience, we can give them a bonus. That's the person in, not to name any communities, Chattanooga, Dalton, Hamilton County that can come back and we can be competitive from a salary standpoint is you add that bonus on top of there, and that's not necessarily salary, but it's an incentive to get people into the door to apply. And then, and it's written down there, then you can receive an additional $5,000 bonus if you stay for 5 years. If you stay for 2 years, I'm sorry. And then if you're a non-post-certified hire, you receive a $3,000 bonus after 2 years of being post-certified in the city. So basically, if you come here, that you lock in a $3,000 pay raise if you stay here for 2 years. We're just trying to get people to apply, let them get in our system, which is a fantastic agency, treated very well, and give people incentive to stay for a little bit to move on. That is and then the last piece of this is, as I already said before, that we'll give you some options to look at for retirement. And we'll see where that goes. And we'll just close the presentation that these are always very difficult conversations. I think this will be a team effort between City Council, myself, and the city employees on trying to hit that, as I see that talking to Mark is that they've really struggled, and I would not say, and Mark would probably characterize, because there is not an emergency situation in the police department at all, from a staffing standpoint. But we see a world that without some action, without a $10,000 difference between the agencies around us, is that we lose ground. We hire people that we probably wouldn't have hired before. We start seeing people that aren't trained as well, making mistakes, having more liability, and just the quality of professionals that we have on the street. So,
Councilman Kessler, did you have a question?
Yeah, Joe, I agree with everything you said, is to get the quality candidates and making sure that we pay we want to, but
Excuse me.
I guess another point too that's been left out there is the veterans. The ones that's been here 20 years, 14 years, that are not getting pay increases, that the ones that are leaving, you know, so that's one part of it, but I think you got, in all fairness, you have to move everybody the same way. You just can't, and you said it before, the lower income will move faster than the higher ups. The veterans is the ones with the driving the trucks or doing whatever they need to do. You can't put a young person on there just hired to do that. I mean, they're the ones that are kind of take care of them and show them the way, David, on the seasonal.
We're not talking about salaries, we're talking about minimums and maximums of position.
Yeah, but you have to do it all the way through, though. I mean, because it causes bumping heads in departments. Well, you're making more than I am. I've been here 3 years now. You're making just as much as I am after being here 3 years. You just got hired on.
No.
I'm just saying, we gotta take care of veterans too.
Everyone shifts, so you will not have compaction with this, because that's what the phenomenon is, that with this model and our software, as it takes into effect and moves everyone, so you won't have any compaction.
That 10 years from here, Cleveland Police Department or Fire Department, 10 years in Chattanooga, they're competitive, correct?
No.
Okay.
So, can I?
I'm just
Councilman-
asking how you,
Councilman Webb has to be recognized.
these are the ones that are older and frustrated. I've got operators, I've got a couple operators, and I just can't hire somebody off the street. I mean, to run a truck or
Yeah.
run the police department, I mean.
I would say those are budget issues that we can talk about when we're dealing with whether to give 3.5 or to do that. Those are compensation issues dealing with individual employees. Right now, we're talking about just the pay scale. We're not talking about,
You're probably talking about the higher end, not pay scale. higher end. You're talking about the higher end scale on the police department right now, is what you
No,
want to
I'm
move.
talking about every single one of them, all of them.
Councilman Webb?
Joe, just one question. On page 19, if you could go back to it, I just want to be sure I have a clear understanding of this. On July 1, 2022, we had a 3.5% across the board, if memory serves me right, for employees. Is that correct?
Yes,
That's what we had done for several years.
yes.
Is it replaced by this 2.5 on page 19?
No. This is not a salary increase.
Okay.
This is, right now, it's a position that the minimum starts at 40,000 and ends at 60,000.
Oh, no. Okay, because this says pay schedule. So the 2.5 is not replacing the 3.5 we talked about, or the 3.0, or
It has nothing to do with individual's compensation. It just moves the scale 2.5% to the.
that's what I wanted to know. I was confused about that one
It's
sentence.
a separate question when we get to the
Okay.
budget.
Okay,
We will, so this is just moving the scale 2.5% this way. That will have results in the system correcting itself, so there's not compaction, so some employees will get some increases. But
So-
it just moves, and
That's
so,
fine.
and but if the council wants to do something different from an annual compensation standpoint, that's when we get into the budget.
I just
and-
wanted to be sure I was interpreting that one sentence correctly, and I wasn't, so.
Councilman,
I'm just more making sure everyone else knows.
Councilman Estes, you asked to be recognized?
A couple comments that I'm just gonna kind of throw out. One, changing compensation, working first with Janice and then with Joe on the last one. I think I went through two with Janice. There are more ways to look at improving compensation than giving everybody the same amount, no matter their level. All right? You also, we've had in the history of the council, we've had lower levels not paid enough, upper levels where they met comps, around us. And so we had to move one part of the scale, but not the whole scale. So we certainly have to open our minds that different parts of the scale get treated differently. I hear you talking about ranges, okay. Secondly, Hamilton County today will pay a math or science teacher $5,000 to $10,000 more than an English or social studies teacher. Decoupling, the problem, Hamilton County doesn't have a problem like the rest of the state, but I'm in a field where, not in Tennessee, but it's heavily union dominated, right? And it's heavily, how many years you've been here, what's your degrees, there's your ladder, there's your formula, and everybody gets the same. There's nothing wrong, what's happening, things are decoupling. We have a problem, and I don't think we've had our head in the sands. I think we know we have a problem with police officers. I have no problem seeing this decoupled or a bridge until we can get, I'm speaking to you now, Joe, I heard your presentation. It's not uncommon for government entities to do things like this. Even the state of Georgia will only recognize certain master's degrees or specialist degrees for moving up on the teacher ladder scale now. Certain ones from certain institutions. So they're decoupling this because they have needs certain areas. You have needs, you got problems, we gotta fix it. I just see some similarities to what's happening in public ed right now. Because I work at the university and we license around 130 teachers a year. Every one of those teachers has a job before they graduate. Many get signing bonuses if they're in certain areas. And I know you mentioned like at the very beginning, it's similar to teachers and police officers and all now. So I'm just throwing that out. This resonates with me. To my colleagues. I can't wait to see more of the specifics. I appreciate going into the weeds. I get it. And to my colleagues, yeah, I see this as a problem with City of Cleveland. Police officers, and even people, I don't know enough, but I certainly think the lower end of our scale is more out of whack than the upper end, and that's why I'd love to see a comp study every year. I mean, I think that's really important. Enough. I won't say anything else. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Anything further from members of the council?
Again,
Councilman
Mayor,
Cassidy?
one more time, I'd like to say, if you raise the base pay up of the police officers, then you're gonna have police officers been there 2 years, and they're, 3 years, it would experience, they'll be close to that. It won't, for this thing.
Our computer model moves all of those.
All of them?
Yes.
All the
That
police
you would keep
officers?
You would keep the same distance, is that it moves, yes. And what you would see is that they would all shift, and any employee in this
So
system.
we're not voting on anything today, right? You're not asking us to do anything today until we get more data from you, correct?
Well, this is actually would be implemented in the budget process, that unless other different direction from the council, we would work through this through the budget process with one exception, of which is the bonus program. So there isn't anything on fire, you're not making any decisions. But if everything is, don't do anything until we decide what we wanna do, then we'll wait. If everyone's comfortable putting it in the budget and working on it, then we would, just like the budget proposal we would have, I'm just trying to have a conversation before we get to that point.
So you're asking us just to work towards that, not do anything, give you and show us the numbers?
No, I think it's an active conversation. But I don't need a vote today. But from a budget development standpoint,
Yeah.
we are headed this way unless the council says we're not headed that way. And then, of course, we'll go in whatever direction you guys want to.
Well, I like to talk to more departments, heads, and get their feel on it there, on that part, so that's what I like to do, privately.
All right. All right, I'm gonna go there. You going and talking to department heads helps nothing and helps us not at all.
I wanna know what their struggles and know what their things are.
So is that good
Yes.
governance? We hire him, he is their boss. How does that help? Ken, you want that when you were at CU?
No,
So I like to have an input on them, on that part.
I understand that.
Yeah, and we can help facilitate input. You know, these are very difficult issues. I don't think, this isn't, these are the things that we would, that are just necessary that we have to kind of work through, is because we see the start of some really, in the one department, we see some stuff. We did not want to bring a proposal that just dealt with the police department, because I think that's unfair and would be seen, not there. So this proposal was meant to raise the votes of everybody, wait until 2024, do a new study, and we will fix all of this stuff coming in 2024. Is that will be the real determiner. We're just trying to, and I'll say it, we're just trying to artificially move the ball until we can get out of all this inflation and things are still moving, give it a little bit of time, and come up with a new study and do it every year. And that's our new pathway. We may be off, or we may be too high with something, but the study will correct it. If it's too low, then you back it back down. Well, we're giving our best guess on how to treat everyone the same, in the sense that everyone's pay scales move. And we're not talking about compensation of any specific employee, just moving the pay scales.
So to Dr. Estes' question about going through you, do you have a problem with us asking department heads questions, or you want us to just go through you? Let me ask you that. That's the way he's directing us. That's
If-
what you-
we,
So we can't get the information that we need, you know, from, if I go on the floor of a machine, or he has a question about a teacher, he can go in the classroom, you know.
have we ever had any restrictions on any?
No, I'm just,
So that's the thing. On something like this, and that's out there, I think it's probably respectful that the person that is actually doing the study that has the answers is there to have a conversation.
So, I'll speak for me only. Chain of command is us to Joe, Joe to them. I appreciate Joe's attitude in letting us jump chain of command. One thing I greatly appreciated Janice was my first or second year here, she said, Bill, when you email a department head, would you please CC me? I've done that every time. Anybody I email in the city, I CC Joe. I just, you are putting a department head sometimes in a difficult situation. I don't think that's fair of you to go, hey, what do you really think about this? How do your men feel? If the employees want to talk, great. I see that as admin, and it's a very different approach to governance than the rank and file. And I don't see that as good governance for Cleveland. You can do it. Joe's giving you carte blanche.
What I said is, it's only fair if I'm there.
Okay, you're right. So you did say that. Yeah, but I would beg that that be the case.
I'm dealing with this topic because I have all the numbers and all the information that can give context.
Can I?
Council,
but I haven't gone out there, I've always included you.
I don't have any problems, Tom.
Councilwoman McKenzie has asked to be recognized.
Joe, is this like a one-time thing, and then after this year, year 24, then we're gonna start doing the yearly,
That's right.
and this will go away? This is just bringing it.
So this is the proverbial bridge. This is a guess on what it is. Right now, the economy is still going like this. There's some inflationary. I would rather take a little bit more time, 2024, take a real snapshot and then do it every year after that and have a strong system that will take us for the next, and that's the fairest thing for probably all employees.
But if we go ahead and say approve this, and it goes into effect, there are things in here we can adjust.
Yeah, yeah.
There are.
Well,
In here.
you guys can adjust any of it at any time. And again, we're not talking about salaries of any, there's not one employee that we're
Well, the
talking about.
bonuses was what I was thinking. on
The bonuses, which is only in effect for 2 years.
That was my concern, 2 years.
Councilman Estes has asked to be recognized, and
Real quick, just
then
for me,
Councilman
Joe,
Webb.
in my opinion, I get having a portable 401K rather than being totally tied in for, let's say, all future hires. I know how that saves money, particularly on your books, for that man right there. I would love for our new hires in the future to have the option, not mandate the 401K. It's just one man's opinion, and I know it's more complicated, right?
It is more
I
complicated.
know it is.
I doubt that you can do that.
Really,
Yeah.
because Ken, what, you can't,
Yeah.
it's either all or nothing?
Yeah.
No, you guys are, no, Ken, I'm not, Ken, talk to me.
I'm assuming that under TCRS, it's not one or the other. It's only one.
Okay.
Because I know of some instances where there have been other governmental entities that were included in an entity that wanted to change, and they weren't allowed to do it unless everyone changed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I seriously
So let me ask
doubt-
this of you, Joe, would you look into that? And even if they have, like, many that were in 401,
3B.
and that they were in then they moved into 401(3)Bs.
Right.
So there was other options to stay in certain systems, hybrid options. I mean,
We're on the same page.
Okay.
I have no preconceived idea on, the retirement piece is very complex, and I would be the first one to tell anyone that there's some things about it that are not necessarily good for the city of Cleveland.
And
So I just wanna make sure for it is, I'm not saying that anything is better or worse or anything. I do think that you see Cleveland Utilities potentially go into that. You see the schools 3 or 4 years ago already did it.
everybody's going to that.
Is that you see a trend, and I'm not saying we have to do it. I'm saying we should at least be up to speed on what the options are, and that's why your question is good, is I think we need to bring all the different things. And you don't even need to make a decision, but I think we need to put things out there to figure out what do we, you know, when we hear from our young employees, particularly police officers, and please don't share that with them, is they're saying, we don't,
I know.
you know, retirement, health, that's not important to someone that's 22 years old.
So your old state and my old state, Michigan and Illinois, are bankrupt because of this very thing, because of retirements, that they unfunded retirements. You know, and so I know Tennessee's not gonna allow that, so they make us put in 17, 18, 22%, I don't know. 22%, yeah. So I understand that it'll say how much money we can save, but hey, here's your 5%, we'll match up to 5% or something.
And is it having, you know, is it sustainable having a 22%, the best retirement and having the lowest tax rate in the state? Do we really think that's sustainable? So there has to be a decision, raise the revenue and keep the retirement, or do something different. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I'm just giving you my thought,
I
my
understand.
opinions to
No,
look
you're
at.
right.
Councilman Webb, you asked to be recognized?
Just one question, Joe. If I understand this correctly, this bridge that you're calling it, really what it accomplishes is that there's not as big a gap as there will be when we get to the next comp study. A lot of those ranges will already have been adjusted.
Yes, I think that's fair.
That kind of sums it up.
Because if we wait till the next one, we're gonna be right back in this conversation, and again, we're not talking about salaries, we're just talking about reacting to the inflationary trends that we've seen.
All right. Any more comments or questions for Mr. Fivas from the council?
I appreciate, yes, one more from me to you. I appreciate that last time it was 12 cents just police and fire, you know, and we all said at the time, it's a whole lot better to do a penny or two a time than hammering whenever, and I appreciate you acting on that, right? Because we all said that. And I think the yearly compensation rate will certainly aid you and Sean as y'all put those together annually, so that we can, if it's needed, we can do it.
It's a superior system doing it every year. We just have to be up to the task, to what degree we can be.
Yeah, you have to be. You can't, too much this year, we can't do it, you know.
But at least you
That's
have the
what you get
information.
into.
and you're
Tommy,
making-
there's always paving.
And David, and then the gap just gets wider and wider.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Mr. Fivas,
That's
your
how we
closing
end up
comment?
with that. Yeah.
I'm happy if anyone wants to sit down and have a conversation with Mark or any other department head, and have a conversation. These are not easy issues, and I don't take them lightly on doing this. The bonus, while some of this, and we can think about this and we can massage this over the next couple of months as we work through the budget project. You know, this is stuff that would be in the budget, and that's where you would amend or vote on that.
So it's a bit longer.
But the bonus would be helpful to give that tool that as we're recruiting right now, that they can start advocating that. And maybe you can prove it now, we can come back in 2 weeks and we can put it on the agenda in some form. I just want to get a sense that's probably the piece that we need to get a sense of. It's just the bonus piece that I think, not these other pieces that will be in the budget.
All right. Well, 2.5 hours ago, our city attorney said, in the interest of time. And somehow that's gotten away from us today,
It has.
Mr. Kimball. But Mr. Fivas, thank you for that very thorough and comprehensive discussion on what is obviously a very difficult and complex but very necessary conversation that we need to have.
I'll share all my friendly emails I get.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Are there any other questions or comments from the council for Mr. Fivas? That will conclude our new business section. Takes us to announcements. The city offices will be closed on Monday, February the 20th in observance of President's Day. And the next city council meeting will be in this chamber Monday, February the 27th. If there are no other comments, questions, or concerns from the council, we stand adjourned.
Amen.